and it's in the breaking we come unbound. And it's in the giving we are found. Yeah, you could barely change.
Welcome to A Medicinal Mind, Wisdom and Well-Being, a podcast dedicated to the telling of authentic stories and the sharing of insightful wisdom, exploring science and spirituality, medicine and Mother Nature. No topic is off limits when it comes to growing our personal understanding and supporting our collective well-being. With your host, Dr. Rob Abbott, a family medicine resident practicing spiritually focused and evolutionarily informed functional medicine, we hope to nourish your being so that you can flourish in whatever the moment has called for you to do.
And I know you try.
In episode 37 of A Medicinal Mind, Wisdom and Well-Being, I dive headfirst into fitness and faith with innovative nutrition and movement coach, Drew Gallagher. Describing Drew and his passion in a single sentence is nearly impossible, so I will do my best to fully showcase a bit of his varied background and extensive training in the world of fitness. Drew has a bachelor's in exercise science and is a certified coach through the National Academy of Sports Medicine. More importantly, however, Drew is a visionary in the field of fitness, exploring the real role of exercise versus developing functional movements, and differentiating the purpose of workouts versus formalized training. As you will hear in the podcast, in his most recent incarnation, Drew is now specializing in a unique approach of functional movement and performance through biomechanics and neuromotor control that maximizes overall function, performance, and health. In our conversation, we start the ground running, seeking to define exercise versus movement, workout versus training, and the real reasons why we should pursue movement or exercise in the first place. Drew offers both insight and personal reflection as part of his journey navigating the sometimes misaligned fitness industry. He illustrates the importance of the breath in initiating and creating positive movement and engaged exercise, and then leads us into a thoughtful discussion about neural control and the role of neuromuscular training versus simply lifting heavy weights. Through it all, Drew offers his fatherly voice, sharing how he structures his workouts with his kids and integrates dedicated training to expand his capacity to be a better role model and facilitator of play for his children. We end the podcast with a heartful discussion of faith, spirituality, and wisdom, as Drew shares how he incorporates his deep-rooted Christian faith into his work with clients as they seek to create whole being wellness. This podcast is packed with wonderful nuggets for anyone with a shred of interest in fitness and movement, and you will likely hear something contrary or new to your present understanding. I am so grateful for connecting with Drew, and I think you will really find this conversation inspiring, enlightening, and just plain fun. And with that, let's get into the show. Well, Drew, thank you so much for joining me today for our podcast. I'm really excited to talk with you, having connected first through a mutual friend, Allison Crystal, and as we were joking off air, anyone that Allison tells me I should meet and should know, I pay attention and listen. So thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate it, and I'm honored to be here.
Awesome. I really want you to take a few minutes here at the beginning just to let everyone know who you are and perhaps where in the country you're living, and give us an idea of what brings your passion out in the world.
So I'm currently in Morris, Illinois. If you're not familiar with that, it's west of Chicago. It's actually not a suburb anymore, and kind of out in the country. I was living in actually Chicago on the north side for a good amount of time, and kind of gradually after I got married, just started to move out of the city and move farther and farther away. And this is actually my wife's hometown, so kind of back here. But I've been doing fitness. I've been doing that industry for the last 12 years. Out of college, I would say it starts all the way back from childhood, though. It's something that, I was a very active kid, played sports, and getting into, looking at what I want to do. I didn't see myself, in a suit, in a typical 9-to-5, sitting at a desk. It just didn't go with my personality, and didn't go with what I wanted to do. And I kind of, I wouldn't say pushed in that direction, but something was pushing me in that direction, and kind of leads me into where am I at today. And, looking back, you always have to, you place your story, not at the present moment, but over the years, and kind of look back and how you've come to where you're at, and all those little situations, and where the gyms that I've been in, and back actually in a big gym currently. It really starts to change your scope on, what fitness is, what exercise is, and what we should be doing probably differently.
Yeah, I'm sure people are probably listening, at least so far. And, I haven't had anyone on the podcast before to really talk about fitness and exercise. And I bet they're expecting something maybe a little bit different than just the status quo. And it sounds like you sort of are kind of alluding to a growth in your perspective, the way that you've seen fitness and exercise. And I know it's something that I've certainly grown in my understanding, and looking at the difference, really between movement and exercise, and this idea of fitness. But would love for you to perhaps share, your definition of fitness, or what you see as, fundamentally, exercise versus movements.
Well, exercise should be something that enhances my movement, should kind of make me more resilient for what I do, for my life, and what I want to do, and what I want to get out of it. If I have hobbies and things like that, if I ski, if I play golf, my workout shouldn't look like I'm a bodybuilder. They should be an expression of movement and power and mobility, and those things. If I have kids, to promote kids an active lifestyle, as a parent, I should be actually facilitating the play. And if I can't get on the floor and crawl and hang from monkey bars and things like that, then I'm not going to be encouraging that type of lifestyle for my kids. And that's kind of where we're kind of going today, I think, in our culture. So we have to go back to, are the gyms set up the way they should be? Because of what our demands in our society, with so much city and things like that. Our environment's changing. Should be altering the what we're doing. Possibly should be different.
It's funny. I've met a lot of people in this sort of ancestral health space. Daryl Edwards probably being one of my good close friends, who's been completely for this pushing play over anything else. I mean, he hasn't done a workout, as he says, in years, but he does these incredible exercises and games with adults, and you can see people's faces light up. The inner child comes out, and I love how you just shared that reality. It's like, look, if you're in your mid-30s and you have kids, and maybe your exercise, if you want to call it that, or what you're training to do is to be a better player with your kids. Like, that's going to be what you're training for, not a marathon or some crazy Spartan race. I'm just training to be able to play more fully with my kids and enjoy it. And I think that's pretty amazing. I think that would be an awesome goal as a new dad. And I know it's something that that you're very passionate about. And so we'd love to maybe get your thoughts about what would that exercise routine look like? What would the dad trying to be a better player with his kids look like?
Well, I think it comes down to first, what you really want. When it comes to health and wellness, fitness, we have to go back to like, what are we really searching for at the end of the day? And if, a lot of times we do just homework assignments to kind of see, when I sit down with a client, to see what they're really looking for, and a lot of times it comes down to, I need to, organize my life better. I need to spend more time with my family. But then they spend all this time, or try to spend all this time in the gym. Well, why can't you include both of those together?
Yes.
I could get into my living room and get on the floor and do some push-ups, and my kids are playing next to me and they're on my back. I could get on the ground, flip over and do some type of core exercise. I can put them in I have twin boys, 2.5. I put them in a laundry basket and I hold it in front of me and I do squats. And again, that's a workout for me. And we have to differentiate workouts from training. But I'm spending, and that's my workout for the day. And then I'll have my own time where I work on my training. And that's where I have a different mindset. And I actually try to promote better positions, better patterns. I'm going to get stronger at my squats. So not every single time. And that's the differentiating. What we get it wrong typically in the fitness community is that, we have to differentiate workouts and the expression. That's kind of like the, it's game time, but not every athlete plays in the game all the time. They have to practice. They have to practice to get better. And that perfect practice then makes them better in game. And too many times we're just doing too many workouts. And actually, if I just play basketball all the time, my game will diminish. But if I practice all the pieces, and then my expression of it is playing the game, my game will probably improve. If that makes sense.
It completely does. I mean, I love the sort of delineation between a workout and, training, this sort of purposeful practice dedicated to, I want to get better at fill in the blank with whatever it is. And we can't be training 24/7, right? Because life is not about training. Life has the workouts. Life has the challenges. And I agree. I feel like, as a society, we've probably be pushed more to, just in general, to overtrain and to train in the wrong areas. Like you said, it's like, if I am a dad with 2 twin boys and what I want to do with them is play with them, why would I spend an hour on the treadmill running? That doesn't really make sense to me. Maybe you can prove me wrong, but I don't see the immediate connection. And but perhaps that isn't as obvious to the average individual. And I'm sure you've had some amazing work and brought out some amazing insights in working with your clients to help them see that as a true realization. I mean, how do you sort of tap into the why behind why people want to start working out in the first place?
Many times you have to change where they're coming from, or how they perceive fitness. Many times we're perceiving fitness by what we watch on TV, what magazine we read, what brings us into that realm. Is it just purely cosmetic? And that's probably what the literature and what are the stuff that I'm going to read. But we get away from the basics. We get away from where everything starts. If I bring my kids to a gymnastics class, they're not going to start off with muscle ups and handstand progressions and all the kind of crazy things that you see in gymnastics. They always start at the basics. Can you make some basic shapes? Can you do those things? And then can you build from there? And that's what we're missing typically in the fitness realm, is we're trying to just get to the end result, but we don't like the practice time or the mindfulness of, okay, I need to be able to control different positions over a period of time and then build on top of those.
And I, once again, love that sort of description and visual. I love how you bring up this point of we can get fascinated by the end result and see the product and say, I want that, and not really want the journey to get there. I give the perfect example of, not that it's getting more ridiculous nowadays to get into a single medical school. But I know a lot of people on paper might say, oh man, I really want to be a doctor. And I know I used to be sort of one of those kind of naive, innocent people. And then it sort of smacks you in the face of, what does that journey actually look like? Do you really want the journey, or do you want the end result? And the reason most people end up, not succeeding is because they wanted the end result more than the journey. And I just feel like that's exactly sort of what you're describing, and we have to help people reframe that. And I think mindfulness is probably the best technique to bring about a better awareness of really what is it that you want, and getting people recentered in the present moment, to focus on each step of the journey. It's something that I put into all aspects of my life and into my work with my patients. And so I'm curious, where did you, in using that term, it sounds like you got a familiarity with just building this concept of mindfulness. What was the first experience that you had, and really tapping into that world?
Well, I think it comes back from my own experiences. If you go down a certain road, if you've dealt with maybe some pain, if you have kind of had any type of hardship, we go back to, well, what is wisdom? And wisdom is knowledge. And people know now. We know, what's healthy foods, what's good for us. But the wisdom part of that is action. And possibly, we also know the definition of insanity. And if I keep on doing the same thing over and over again, and getting the same results, it's kind of, so, when I deal with pain, I've had some back issues in the past, and, my knees, ache, and my elbow aches, and this and that. Well, let's take a step back, and maybe I need to look at this a different way. And through my journey, it's then opened my eyes to the other things. And also when I, work with people on a daily basis, and for this amount of time, I start to see similar things, and we have to start to change our approach a little bit.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the pain piece. I've talked to my mom at length. She's a physical therapist and works, interestingly, in a more industrial setting with a lot of craftsmen at the Newport News shipyard. And one of the things that can sometimes be a tough sell for her to the shipbuilders is, if they're, feeling fine, if things are going well, they have no pain, and they don't really see why they need to be doing these stretches before they go into work, or the concept of differentiating, doing different movements. If they're just a welder, and if 75% of the day they're in this single position, that going outside of that scope of range of movement will help them. And pain can be, and is probably the biggest motivating factor. But as my mom and I always talk about, well, we can't wait for pain to tell you that there's dysfunction, because there can be dysfunction in the body, and there will be way before there's pain. And I don't know, it's something that I've brought into my life, in a broader perspective. But I was curious too, if that is something that you have seen in working with clients, this sort of this motivation. But how do you work with people when it comes to navigating this space of pain?
Well, I think you can even go back to the healthcare community, but the health and wellness and fitness, because we know that a car needs maintenance, and that at 3,000 miles you might need to get oil change. If we have mechanisms on brakes that if it starts to squeak, then I probably need my brakes checked, or, so we have these things that we naturally, and for some reason with our body, we think it's just indestructible until, I'm not going to change my diet until something major happens, or until my doctor says, hey, I need, some kind of medication for my cholesterol, blood pressure, or something like that. So going back to that, I think we just need to be more proactive than reactive. And that's the preventive maintenance type of setup. I don't wait till my car is broken, or I actually prevent that that breakdown before it happens. I think we need to look back, and does my body work the way it should? We have to start to reestablish, what our movements and what our positions that my body should make, and what are exercises. And again, in today's American culture, we've said that a squat is an exercise, but in the rest of the world, it's a movement for life. It's a position that my body should be able to get into to basically, function. And it allows, good elimination, because that's how we should actually use the bathroom in a deep squat. But it also takes me through a full range of motion. But in America, it's based on just an exercise. So we start to change our thought process upon what it is. And that just changed the whole trajectory of what we think movement is, or our capabilities or potential.
I love, once again, this description of sort of the way you delineate what we've turned into an exercise, what fundamentally is really a movement. And, there's so many theories out there of how we sort of have taken and morphed the modern lifestyle into one that's unfortunately too sedentary within these interspersed moments of dedicated workouts and exercise to somehow compensate for the lack of robust movement through in the general part of the day. And I mean, you see it all the time. People in the work week, sort of 9 to 5, fairly limited in their movement. Maybe walking 4,000 or 5,000 steps, and not really doing that much in terms of formal workouts or training. And then on the weekends, the sort of weekend warrior type. And what happens is this: you go out on Saturday and you try to do the 25-mile bike ride, and you get incredibly sore the next day, and you're grouchy, and then the body just can't recover well. And you all of a sudden you're in your work week, and of course you can't recover well because now you're at work. And I just I feel like we push too much this need that exercise. That's what you need, but really it sounds like fundamentally what we need are movements, and someone to help guide us to move better. It can be very difficult to early on to know proper squat. I know just watching our kids, like that's how I try to learn. And working in my kids' ministry, I get to work with elementary age kids weekly, and you just watch them, the way that they move, and can inform your body. But it's it isn't that simple. So I'm sure people are they probably, the first thing they think of is not, I need to go work with somebody to help with my movements. They think of, why, if I'm going to see someone, if I'm going to pay someone, they better be giving me a workout and exercise, and that's going to be worth it. But so how do you navigate that when you're trying to share with clients like what it is you can offer them, or what it is that they maybe should be motivated to do?
Yeah, and that's kind of where the as somebody that's been in the fitness, and I hate to even say personal training realm, the kind of the seeing the trajectory of the industry. I'm not here to get a workout anymore. I can't, because there's, you could go online, get an app or YouTube or anything like that, and it's somebody can show you all these different cool things that you could potentially do. My goal is to give you principles. I give you basically establishment of, how does your hip supposed to function? How is your core supposed to be positioned? How do you create stability? How do you create mobility? And then how you express that is up to you, and how far you want to take it, again, is your practice and your expression in your life. But I'm just trying to open up a door to possibly see it differently, and then how far you can go, because what I see in the masses is that nobody's working to their potential. It's in our culture today, it's more passive. We're more passive. So then when I come to exercise, if I'm more passive, then my exercise is kind of passive. Intensity is kind of drawn back, and it's just something. It's a cultural thing right now.
Yes, this was something you had shared with me before the show, was this idea of this concern for just general passivity in much of our life, whether it's in our work or in the scope of workouts and exercise. I love how you have pointed that out, and I feel like we have to start holding each other accountable when we slip into reactive, passive mode instead of this proactive and really active mindset. It's something that even with the greatest of motivation, sometimes we need a little boost from our friends, from our people at work to keep us in that sort of active and proactive mindset.
I think, Rob, it goes back to a little, we go back to our nervous system, and we're just overstimulated. It goes back to social media, and also, we're always in this kind of sympathetic state. Well, exercise is meant to be, we're supposed to upregulate our nervous system. We're supposed to have this endorphins and adrenaline rush and things like that. So post, that's where the benefit is. We can start to enjoy the exercise, but really it's the benefit after the exercise. And too many times we're just so overwhelmed coming into a workout that we can't upregulate. So we're not seeing the change and the physiology change that we're searching for. And that's kind of where we're at.
That is so true. I mean, the picture I have, right, is the person on the exercise bike with their iPad watching Netflix. I can't think of anything more like passive and just, as you just said, it's like, I mean, how are you going to rev the body up? How are you going to, sympathetically drive it to the degree that you should in that workout to get that hormetic effect, to get that sort of true effect on the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems? It's I don't know, just hit me right there in visualizing that, and the passivity of TV and all this other social media stuff. It's, as you kind of alluded to, but I'm just that image just like smacked me in the face. And how do we solve that? How do we help on the individual, but how on a bigger level can we solve that? Because I see that as a problem, like you do.
Oh, it's a huge problem, but it's the industry is feeding that problem though too, because okay, if you're not, getting pumped up before your workout, well, you need a pre-workout supplement. So we're pushing then caffeine and everything else. But I go back and I had a discussion with somebody at the gym, and I go, does a Navy SEAL need a pre-workout to be a Navy SEAL? And they kind of stopped for a second. They thought about it and they're like, no. So maybe we need to start to think about, how can I naturally upregulate, and intrinsically start to create this intensity that I'm searching for. Because at the end of the day, if you can't find it, it's not going to help you outside of here. If I could take pre-workout and, slap on a weight belt and try to lift so much weight, but if I need to pick up something outside of here, I don't have that. Well, I can't lift that weight. That's a problem. And that's just the smallest expression. If I'm an athlete, what I do in the weight room is an expression of what I want to do on the field and the court. Most people think that to get strong, it has to associate with weight. And we know that's not true, because if you look at a gymnast, they really don't train. It's mostly body weight or calisthenics training or yoga. If I express, in some of these advanced poses, in these holds and things like that, there's high neural load. I have to stimulate the whole body at one time. So it has nothing to do with weight itself. It's built from within, and it starts with the breath. So that's a perfect segue. If I can't lay on my back and learn how to express my diaphragm, and that connects with my pelvic floor, and if I can't get those units together and create tension through my midsection, and then to express my hands all the way down to my feet in a full tension type of control mechanism, then I'm not going to be strong, or my expression of strength is not going to be to where my capabilities can be or should be. So it always starts there. So it's typically getting people in the back, and it's usually there's a little what, but then we segue from there, and then the whole element of the plank, and we hear the plank, but if we understand our body's made to make shapes, and the expression of the plank, most people are just, as long as their hips are off the ground, I'm in this suspended position, that I'm doing the plank, and that's the farthest from the truth. The whole body is supposed to be creating this bridge, and the plank is the first piece to segue into so many things. So if I don't create the neural tension through my body to stabilize this plank, then to progress the plank into a push-up position, into something farther than that, then it's not going to help me if I deadlift. If it's not going to help me if I put a bar on my back, it's not going to help me if I get into an advanced yoga position or gymnastics position or something like that. So it all starts with the breath, and then how can I stimulate the rest of the body through that system?
I love it, Drew. I wonder, people are probably wondering too in this moment, so what is like working with this guy look like? If I'm not, bench pressing or, doing deadlifts with this guy, well, what really am I doing? And so, perhaps you can, offer us a picture of what a workout or, a training session looks like with you.
Well, typically it's, the first thing is there's always an assessment. So I have to see, again, it's nothing I could find out within, just a few minutes, what your capabilities are. And it's not going into detail. Again, my practice is not to get hands-on. There's people that do that, and typically, referring to somebody else that somebody might have limitations, that is restricted, or they're in pain. And depends on the kind of pain and how long the pain, and again, but if they're in pain and it's maybe acute, and I also look at, then I assess and see their shapes are off. So meaning like, well, their knee is not tracking the way it should, their foot's not behaving the way it should, the hips and the alignment of the spine are not where they should be, then let's see if some positioning and some movement and some active facilitation of that can get that there. So typically some type of progressive stretching, in the means of too many times we passively stretch. If my hamstrings are tight, well, that's a motor control issue. That's not a hamstring issue. If I sit all the time, then typically my pelvis is going to, tilt forward. My core is not going to be active. My hip flexors are going to be tight. My glutes are not going to work well. So my hamstrings are doing double work, and the front structure is not maintaining stability through my trunk. So my hamstrings are kind of helping to stabilize that broken system. So we have to start to restructure what muscles are turning on and what muscles are turning off. And then we start to just do some basic core work, and it all goes back to motor control. So if I'm in a position, say on my back, and if I guess the best way to describe it is, it's a dead bug exercise, which is if you're laying on your back, your legs are up in a tabletop position, your hands are up to the sky. So if I go to extend one leg out or one arm back, and if I have any change in my rib cage or pelvis, and my core starts to move, so the compression force from my rib cage to my pelvis, that starts to move, then I can't control my midsection. So that exercise is too advanced for me. And it might seem very basic, but that control system, so if it starts to just do that on a very light load, well, what does it do under a higher compression load if you're squatting or deadlifting or doing something more global, where you're using multiple extremities at one time? And that's where we have to start. And it doesn't take much. Since we are changing the nervous system, it's not like, okay, well, let's work on this for the next 2 months and get better. It looks like, well, we can get better in this one session. And then you need to practice. So, I always think, people have to have the student mindset of, okay, I need to go home and do some homework. And then from there, they come back, and typically 2 days later, it's like, okay, we can progress to this. So it all depends on, do they have a practice mindset? Are they a student? Do they want to do homework? Do they want to get better? What's their why that's driving these factors? Or is it just basic superficial and they just want to, get to that end result? And then that won't happen. And I really don't like to work with those. So typically we have a different conversation at that point.
Man, it's humbling. I'm sure to probably, work with you. It sounds like, from my perspective, it's almost this, I need to take a beginner's student mind, this sort of beginner perspective of, maybe some of my fundamental movements are lacking because I haven't been doing them, and maybe I need to take a step back. It can seem sort of insulting and people can get offended, and I've seen it happen. People who are doing these maybe more elaborate workouts, and when in reality what they should be doing is focusing on just some basic, what seem like basic core, fundamental movements. And I mean, I see it a ton too in our kids, that they get so specialized in playing baseball since the age of 6, but they can't do like a jumping jack or, walk or skip or some of these basic movements. And once they've gotten so specialized, all they do is I'm a baseball player or I'm a football player. And we haven't even worked on these basic movements. And it terrifies me to see if we're doing that at such a young age. It's going to be incredibly difficult for the 30, 40, 50-year-old who comes to want to work with you. And maybe they have been up to this point, bench pressing, but they haven't even learned how to engage their core like you've been talking about.
Yeah, I think with, going into the kid segue, or just kind of looking at that and how they develop, we're trying to make 6-year-olds into full baseball players instead of being like, well, a 6-year-old, I need you to express these attributes to be the best athlete you can. I'm not worried about baseball right now. When you're 16 and you're getting ready on the segue to have some scouts start to look at you when you're a junior and senior in high school, then I'm worried about, where's your skill set at? But at 6 years old, we understand mathematics, and I know that we need to, do, basic, plus and minus, and then getting into multiplication, and then calculus comes down the road. And we have these scales and ways that we kind of determine what the next grade or level is. And for some reason, we just try to speed that process when it comes to, and a lot of times it could be parent driven,
Yeah.
Like, you hear parents that play golf. Well, let's get to the range and hit so many golf balls, but the kid can't, balance, walk on a balance beam, or he can't hang from monkey bars. Well, he's missing the expressions of, what it should be like to be a kid, for one, but also just some basic movement patterns. And I'm not trying to make them, Tiger Woods at 6. I want to see them progress to, so, at a certain stage, okay, well, you should be probably at 12, you should be doing this, and then 14, and then at 18, and then it should even continue to enhance, and you see it across typically the best in the world, LeBron James, hopefully he's better now than he was when he was 18. If not, he probably wouldn't be where he's at right now. So again, we just want to continue to develop, and you see the kids and what we're having is we can talk about the burnout, so people get burnt out because they're trying to hit this end result. They can't get there, or they're not achieving the success they want to see. And, they get burnt out. Instead of just working on effort, and just the practice. And that goes back to just to the practice and enjoying that. And that's what it really comes down to. You mentioned about, I think a little bit about, even meditation and things like that. But, when it comes to exercise and fitness, it should be an active meditation. We understand meditation is, just a present moment, and present with breath. So that's exactly what I should be doing when I exercise. I'm present in the moment. I understand that I want to kind of go through some checkpoints. If I was going to do something in physical nature, I'm going to think about my posture, positioning, and then I'm going to think about my breath control and how I'm breathing through that segment of movement, of exercise. Even when I'm doing cardio, how many people that do cardio are thinking about how they breathe? But that it completely affects, am I aerobic and am I anaerobic? What fuel sources am I using? And that's not talked about. We're not communicating that in the fitness world. But if you go to martial arts, if you go to yoga, that's the first thing they talk about, because it does start there. And then everything translates from that.
It's so beautiful. I mean, I can't believe, if I was one of your clients, I would just feel so fortunate and lucky to find you, even if you did put me through some things that I didn't quite understand initially, or didn't quite seem very clear to me where I was going. But it just sounds, your perspective on the journey is so wonderful, and I can guarantee, I know you're having tons of success with folks, and it's got to be really, I'm sure, rewarding. I think, as we've been talking a little bit about sort of the dynamics of children and using them to understand movements. And I know you alluded to earlier, you're a family guy. You have a couple kids, and was curious if you just wanted to share some personal thoughts on what it's like being a dad who, I'm guessing you probably don't have 3 hours a day to go do your workouts or do your training as you maybe did in the past.
Yeah. So that again, I'd like to differentiate as workouts and training. There's times where I want to spend time with my kids, and I think that as a father, that comes before anything else. But I don't have to neglect my body. I don't have to neglect these things. So can I live? Be in my kids are 2.5 twin boys, and can I play with them and do a workout at the same time? This was just a couple of weeks ago. I was, I wanted to get a workout in, and I was up in the morning and kind of we have this off room, and I'm working out, and then they come downstairs, and I don't get to spend a lot of time with them, with everything else. So I'm not going to sit there and close the door and just work out. So I actually went out there and kind of finished what I was doing, and we had a laundry basket sitting there, and one's about 40 pounds, the other one's 36, and the other one's about 30 pounds. And I put them in the laundry basket and was hoping that would hold. And, I'm doing squats, and I'm sitting there and I'm pressing with them. And then I took them off and I'm holding both of them. And I'm doing lunge walks. And then I had, one of them I'm doing push-ups, and he's on my back, and, and they were having a blast.
Yeah.
Again, I'm making it, and they don't know. And again, that is being an example. So hopefully they will follow suit, and start doing some of the stuff too. But it was enjoyable for me. I didn't have any neglect, and I did a workout. I would say though that the workout and understanding what I was trying to get out of that was just a workout. I'm not trying to enhance, the training aspect is I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to get stronger. And that's where we miss off too, is too many people are trying to just work out all the time, and we're not getting, okay, I need to have that practice time. So yeah, that wasn't necessarily a practice time where I'm focused on skills, and I'm focused on full neural load and tension. I'm trying to take my capabilities of where they're at, take an uneven, application or object, which is this, laundry basket.
Yeah.
And, my wife's rolling her eyes because, is one going to fall out, or, that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
you have that now, and that's real life scenario too. So is that making me stronger in those capabilities as well? And we had a smile on the face. I get my heart rate up. I'm loading the body. So there's all those pieces that, you're looking for in a workout. But I'm trying to be a dad at the same time.
It's so fun, man. I just love that. I work at volunteer with my church in the kids ministry, and the first part of every worship service, the first 10, 15, sometimes even 20 minutes is we're just playing. Kids, we're running around. We have different balls. One of the things we love to do is play a little bit of soccer. We kind of have like a soccer area where we can, kick a ball around, or it's just, you're just kind of running around, hopping around. And I am never, that sort of hour and a half is just my moment to kind of roll around on the floor and do somersaults, just do any kind of crazy thing with these kids. And it's so freeing, and we can both, learn from them. But as you said too, we can, we need to be the sort of role models of play and of movement for our kids. And I think, as adults, and we get a little too serious, and everything is all formalized, and we start to take things personally too when we can't get our training in, because I feel resentful for having to do things for our kids, when, like you just said, you can make it into your way of living. Is I bring the kids into my life. I can carry them on my back to the grocery store, or take a walk with them, and make that a part of who you are. And that's what's ultimately going to make Americans healthier, is families doing this together. Adults, I think, being more like kids, and kids being able to grow up as more sort of engaged and empowered adults. I don't know. I picture it all, centering on this fluidity and these dynamics. But we have to be positive role models, and sometimes we need to say, hey, I need some help. There's someone out there who can probably show me something that I'm not doing correctly, and it'll probably benefit me. And it's so wonderful just to hear that you're out there, and not only doing it with your family, but I'm sure sharing this with so many others.
Yeah, that's what and you kind of you mentioned about lifestyle, and that's the biggest piece. Is what people are trying to do is, I actually heard this in a message I was listening to, but we first start with, we're trying to get disciplined, and you're looking for discipline. I'm trying to go to the gym so many times a week. I'm trying to be disciplined on my nutrition. And the second part of that is lifestyle. So I have to be disciplined enough to kind of make this a structured lifestyle. And then from there, that's where the enjoyment is. And what I see is, especially, going back to a big gym, and to see so many people, is they're not making a lifestyle. As much as they're coming to the gym so many times a week, they're still shackled trying to be disciplined, because anytime they have a scenario where they're outside of that, so the holidays come, guess what happens? They don't, if it was a lifestyle, then I should still express that even on the holiday. I shouldn't let it just go all out the window and I just kind of go for a free for all.
Yeah.
If I go on vacation, I shouldn't just like, oh, I'm on vacation now and it all goes out the window. I'm going to still follow some principles. Am I going to enjoy myself? Yes. I'm not saying that you don't enjoy yourself. I'm not saying that you kind of put yourself in any scenario, but it's always a lifestyle then at that point. And I see the enjoyment, and I could, if I go on a vacation and I'm on the beach, well, can I still do a workout? Yeah, because I know I enjoy that I've made that a lifestyle. So I'll go run down the beach. I'll do some push-ups. I'll find something to do a pull-up on. And that will be, and I will feel so much better, and I come back and I don't regret anything. If I, Thanksgiving meal, if we understand that, in our eating, that I have a budget and I can only budget so much with carbs and so much food. So I'm going to pick the things that I really enjoy. Probably not going to eat the other things. So I don't need to sample every single thing on Thanksgiving, because I know what I really enjoy.
Yeah.
But at the end of it, I don't feel, like I just stuff myself for, and I don't regret it. And then it doesn't continue for, the rest of the week, the weekend, and, to the end of the year. So, it's those things that I see, and we're not making, people are searching for the lifestyle piece, and they're not getting there.
It's, wow, really a holistic view on, our wellness. We've hit on, so many things, today, obviously talking about sort of fitness and this difference between workouts and training, difference between movement and exercise. We've, even been alluding to nutrition and just the aspect of play that we should be cultivating, family. We've hit on so many of the key facets to health. And, I've been just grateful that you've spent this much time talking about it. And, in the few minutes remaining, I would love to kind of dive into one more of those facets that we have, connected with from a foundational level, but this idea of faith and spirituality, or as I'm coming to call it in a very diverse setting, that something more. And, I really would love if you wanted to share, where does faith enter the scene when it comes to fitness? Because I'm just guessing that, people coming to you aren't expecting necessarily that that's going to be a big part of your life, or maybe your relationship with them. They're maybe just expecting a workout, but I know faith has been a huge part of your life, and you've brought it into your work, and would love if you'd want to share a bit about it, a bit of that right now.
Yeah. So it's a piece that, I go into, but it's not the initial piece. I feel that at first, I have to get to know that person. I'm not trying to, shove down anything down anybody's throat or anything like that, but it's what people believe. If I start to believe, so if you believe that, food kills more people in a year than a lot of things. If we believe that food is inflammatory, or most of the food, processed food today, if I believe that, then I will start to change what I do, my actions. If I believe in what is this life for, and what is my calling, and how am I supposed to steward my body, and be an example to my family and to people around me, then I'm going to have, and if I'm going to be judged at the end of the day, then I'm going to, hold things at a different standard. And when I see people that they're searching for things, but there's so many pieces of possibly their life that they're missing, we have to go there. I have to go somewhere deeper, because, especially if they're not making a change for what they want, we have to see, what do you really believe? What does this look like at the end of the day? And I try to, it's something not as direct. A lot of times it just pops up in conversation. Just trying to, sometimes I try to steer it in a certain way to see where that will go. And I've had, really good conversation and also when some people step back, you never know where they're at with it. It's like you throw politics out, and well, it doesn't matter what side you are. I want to hear your story, and see where you're at, because I'm not trying to, again, convert you to the other side. I'm trying to share and kind of see how we can better at the end of the day.
That's so wonderful. I've been doing the same thing, trying to sort of figure out what's the best way to go there, because the reality is, in nearly every case, we need to. And I'm not afraid to touch those topics. And I mean, on more than one occasion, I've had people in the hospital be just so grateful that I've asked about their faith, and been willing to share in a prayer. I mean, I've had numerous people, and to me, it's a little bit of a sad thing, tell me that you're the first doctor who's prayed with me. Now, I can guarantee you, I'm not the first doctor that's walked in there that has any sort of sense of faith, spirituality, and willingness to do so. But why was I the first person in these people's lives to go there? And I usually start by trying to simply ask people, do you consider yourself a particularly religious or spiritual person? And the answers you can get, it can be a variety. Some people immediately go to, well, I go to church every Sunday, and sometimes I'll joke, I'm like, well, that's not really what I was getting at, but it's it's a start. But I try to open the conversation with something like that, and then can see try to meet people where they're at. And if that's something that they want to engage more in, then we go there. If they, kind of are like, well, no, this is not something that's a big part of my life, then I know, okay, we'll get around to that in a different way. But we have to have something to engage with when it comes to cultivating faith or this greater purpose to our lives, because ultimately, that workout's just not going to matter if when you go home, that greater purpose and meaning isn't there.
Right. Many times, because what I do and spending so much time with somebody is, a simple vein of, oh, what do you do this weekend? And I usually try to inject as much as I can. And, I went to church this weekend. And really just that basic statement just opens the doors, because if people are searching, so many people are searching for things. They're searching for it. So, if you go to a party and they find out what you do, everybody has questions. If I said I was an accountant, nobody would have questions.
Yeah.
Everybody has a body, and everybody has this perception or idea, or this good idea of, I'm trying to get in shape, or I'm trying to change my diet, or and wherever that goes. And the same thing too is most people are searching for happiness and for meaning and for purpose. And usually, everybody's probably been somewhat associated with some type of faith in their background past. Maybe they're not in it. Maybe something happened. So it's good to kind of share or just open the door to possibly sharing my story and kind of where I'm at, as well as then maybe try to steer them in a different direction.
I think it's perfect. I mean, I do this, the same thing. If people, ask you what were you doing on the weekend, I mean, sometimes it'll be, usually if they ask me what I'm doing, it's working. But if they ask me what are you doing when you're not working, and I tell them, well, I'm spending time with my fiance, and I'm going to my church community because they give me so much love, and people will see that, like you just said, it's just, they'll see the truth, the authenticity behind it, and maybe that's what it's meant by being a evangelical, is just sharing that, your personal experience, your personal belief. And who knows, like if I had grown up in a different environment, maybe I wouldn't be a Christian, maybe I would be a Buddhist, maybe I would be a Hindu, maybe be following Judaism. It really kind of came down to culturally what space I was in, and I've incorporated a lot of those different beliefs into my worldview. And so we have to get our heads, I think, out of the strict religious paradigm or this way, that way, and start having a discussion, because through that we can learn so much more about each other as human beings. And I don't know, it's just that's what gives me meaning. It's sort of like having those kind of conversations. So
yeah, I think it goes back to it's all a practice. when we get away from, so if we talk about, when as a kid growing up in a Christian home, and, you go to Bible study or Bible school, and, you're supposed to, pray and read the Bible. And for some reason, as adults, we get away from that. We think it's more complex, or we need to do more, or be, more holy, or whatever. And it just goes back to the principles of, what I'm trying to do in health and fitness, and going back to basic principles of nutrition. And, so we're trying to, make so much, many times we're just trying to reinvent the wheel. And a lot of times, I always talk about the telephone game. We understand that in 10 minutes, if I say one thing, it could be totally misinterpreted and through a few people.
Yeah.
And I think we're missing the point when it comes to fitness, even with faith, and where we're at, and what it really means. And we get too caught up in, possibly, these actions and what and then it's, and again, it's the fall of man of, and it could be the fall of our society right now when it comes to even our health and our wellness. So it all comes back together in some way.
Getting back to some fundamental basics and doing it in community. I think that's got to be the core. Drew, this has been really, really wonderful. I am thankful that you've been able to share, a lot of your own story and your work, and hopefully helped people kind of, broaden their worldview when it comes to fitness and faith, and what we can be doing to sort of, optimize our health and bring meaning into our lives. So it's been a pleasure. I would love if I'm sure you shared at the beginning, where you're at, but if people were have been listening and want to get in touch with you, or reach out, what would be the best way to follow and get in touch?
You can Facebook, Andrew Gallagher. It's private, so if you want to get in touch, I can again reach out, and I'll tag you on, and we could again chat further from there. And I'll link on my email. Be definitely open to, would love to have conversations. Again, this is, I'll be honest, when I first got into this, it was selfish, meaning that, I liked it for me, and that's what made me passionate about it. But now when I can help people, and people really want to be helped, that's what really fires me up. And that's what I love to do. So I'd love to help anybody I could.
That's so wonderful. Well, thank you again, and perhaps our paths will cross physically in person someday.
Yes, definitely. Like I said before, it was kind of weird how we, I met Allison, and how we met, and there's probably more meaning there than what we're seeing right now. So in the future, there's definitely something else there.
Yeah, there's definitely a greater reason. We just got to wait a little bit longer to find that one out.
Right. Well, thank you, Rob. It's been a pleasure. And hopefully we can do this again.
Awesome. Well, you have a great rest of your day. Thanks again, Drew.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you for your presence and willingness to receive a new narrative, a passionate perspective, and perhaps a deeper sense of connection with our collective purpose. Please share this podcast with any and all that you believe will benefit from its intention to relieve one's doing and engage one's being. Please share your comments about the conversation on our podcast page and leave a review in iTunes so that the voices in this space can spread to all ears ready to receive it. Music credit goes to Dillingham for their song Vessel. Remain open, stay curious, and forever be love.
You walked on fire, and I know you tried.